Hi everybody, I'm Tara from Crooked Row, and today we are going to talk about goldenrod. Goldenrod is that beautiful flower that comes out that lets you know that we're at pretty much the end of the summer season. It's definitely time for fall time, and it's also a plant that is loaded with medicinal benefits. And so, but today, so I'm not a doctor, I'm not an herbologist, although I wish I was. But I'm not a doctor, so this is just as a hobby. I'm not making any statements. I just want to say that right off the bat. But I just want to show you how I harvest goldenrod, and we utilize goldenrod in tinctures and in tea. And we mostly use the leaves for tea, although we'll use a little bit of the flower. But we like to get the flowers at a very specific time so that we can extract the most pollen out of these, so that it actually goes into the liquid of the tincture. And I think a lot of people don't understand. They think that they're allergic to goldenrod and it's really ragweed. But goldenrod is good for allergies, and most people don't know that. But if you are going to utilize goldenrod and you have allergies, I would say the best way to combat your allergies is with a tincture. So I'll show you how we make that. But I think a really big one too is what color is the goldenrod at. So we have, right next to the greenhouse and kind of back behind our garden, we have just loads of goldenrod. I love it. It's so beautiful. And you want to get one that is a really bright yellow. Now, as the plant ages, it starts to darken, and I'll show you the different types. While it's still beautiful, that's not really what we're after. We want that really bright, crisp yellow. So I have a basket that my in-laws gave me and my trusty pruning shears. Let's go look at some goldenrod. So right here is a very good example of goldenrod flowers that are fully open, and these that are starting to close and start to darken. Right here, this one is really starting to darken. So you are really after even the stage before this one where they're fully open, because you want to get as much pollen as you can. And remember to only take about a third of what is here. We have mountains of goldenrod all over this farm, so I'm not worried about that for us. But this is the last thing that the pollinators will get, so don't take their entire food source. So all of these over here are pretty well spent, and if we can get this actually clear enough, you'll actually see the darkening centers on each of these flowers. Those are pretty much done. You might be able to take them out and use them for dried arrangements, but as for our purposes, unless you're just going to take it for the leaves, because these have really healthy leaves on them, you just want to move on to the next patch. Okay, so I have my basket full of goldenrod, and I actually snipped one that's past its prime. And so I feel like you would say this is goldenrod. You know, all the little flowers are open. They're absolutely beautiful. It's such a gorgeous little plant. But this is definitely past its prime for what we want to use it for. Whereas all the rest of them are still kind of, they're starting to erupt and blossom into their little flowers. I don't know if you can see that right there. I might be shaking. Let's see if I can hold it still. But there are some that are still closed, so all of their pollen is still intact. And I can tell you, the pollinators are loving their life right now. That whole field behind me is full of this. And there's like 6 or 7 on like each one. They're like crawling all over each other. I think they're drunk on goldenrod right now. So what I'm gonna do and how I'm gonna utilize this is, did I just throw that back in there? Hang on. Is that it? Looks like it. So I am going to, in my canning jar, I am going to utilize mostly just the flowers. And all I'm going to do is just clip off. I'll leave a little bit of the leaves on, but I'm just gonna drop them right in my jar. And I don't throw the rest of the stalk away. I'll strip these leaves off and I'll utilize those for tea. But you do want to inspect the plant just to make sure that there is no bugs in it, because you don't want to steep bugs. Yuck. I don't want a bug tincture. So I'm just going to go through here and I'm going to clip the tops of all of these off and reserve my leaves over here for tea. Okay, that was the last one. So now we have a bundle of leaves for our tea, which all I'm going to do, you can use every single part of a goldenrod. You can use the roots, you can use the leaves, you can use the stems, and you can use the flowers. I don't care for the stems too much, so I like to just kind of clean them off, and it's too easy if you go against, like, the leaves are going up, so I go in the opposite direction. Boop. You just want to be careful, a little bit careful with the leaves so that not to bruise them. You can also leave them on the stems and just hang them up and dry them. That'll work too. Any kind of, like, this has some sort of spots on it, I won't use those. I'm not going to use this whole branch. I'm not going to use that whole branch. Or this one. But these look good. And again, if you want to use the stem, you absolutely can. And you can just dry them and just cut them into a canning jar and utilize them. I'm just gonna dry these on I'm gonna spread these out on a screen and dry them. And then I usually keep them in a canning jar. Ta-da! See, these are more, I don't know if you can see that, but there's just too many spots on that. Okay, that is finished for tea. So I'll put those on a screen and dry those. And once they're like crumbly, then I will put them in a canning jar. Now, for my tincture, I utilize a good potato vodka. There's nothing special about this. It's the cheapest one that the liquor store had, and you don't need to use good vodka for this. Okay, now I'm just going to push this down. And then fill it with vodka. All the way up. Just make sure nothing sticks out. We don't want anything to mold. So that vegetation will be absolutely fine while it is under the vodka level. Okay, so this is full. It's absolutely beautiful. But go ahead and put a lid on it. And then you want to shake it a bit. You want to make sure that there's no air bubbles in there. I'm just going to open it back up. See, you have some sticking out. You don't want any sticking out. Okay. Now I'm going to go put this in a dark, cool place, which I have a cabinet that we actually use to do tinctures, but it's nothing special. It's literally just a cabinet. You can put this anywhere. I know some people who put them under their bed so it's out of the way. You just have to remember when you did these, I'm gonna let this steep for about 2 months. So it's September. In November, very close to Thanksgiving, we will be bottling this, straining it off and bottling it and utilizing this. Well, there you have that tincture and the tea from the leaves. So there is a lot of uses for goldenrod that a lot of people aren't aware of. Like, I know that it helps keep your mucosa healthy. I know that it is extremely good for bringing down inflammation and people with kidneys. I know that they highly suggest for people who are prone to UTIs or kidney stones, this is something good for you to take. It also helps with sinuses, and because it helps with the cleaning of the mucosa as well, you'll kind of want this around during cold and flu season. Not just colds, but flus too. I know that my mother, she actually got the flu 2 years ago, and she was hospitalized, and it got so bad that she was actually vented, and so she was on the machine. The machine was breathing for her, and we almost lost her. And I've talked about it in a video before, but sometimes having things like this as preventative maintenance is very, very good. I'm not saying to do this in place of going to a doctor or anything like that, but we all want to do what we can at home before it gets to that point. And so I think that things like this and fire cider and the things that we all do with elderberries, and which I want to have a video on. I keep saying every year that I'm going to show what we do with elderberries, and I always forget. But the elderberries and all the different wild edibles that most people have either in their own yards or very close to them. And so of course you want things that have not been sprayed, because you don't want to be putting those types of sprays into your body. But these things help. And I know that I had the same flu as my mother, but I had a lot of these herbs on hand, and she does not live with us. But I had a lot of these herbs on hand, and my flu, while it was really, really bad, it did not get as bad as hers did. So These things can help your symptoms, but I feel like it also helps boost your immune system, especially things like elderberry and things like that. But this goldenrod is so prolific throughout our entire country, and probably in Europe as well. I don't know if it's in the Middle East, but when we can do something so simple to help us through, I think that it's a good thing to do. So remember, if we can make tinctures and tea from our goldenrod, anybody can. Thanks. Bye.